Why do we snack? Because we have nothing better to do? Well, people who snack on almonds have something better to do. Almonds are heart healthy and full of energy, with the crunch that keeps you in the game. California almonds. Crunch on.
This is the Best of Mike and Mike podcast on ESPNradio.com. The Best of Mike and Mike.
Hi, it's Greeny. Thank you for checking out the podcast. What we have for you today, plenty of reaction to the Hall of Fame vote, including visits from Craig Biggio and John Smoltz. Gary Patterson and Kevin Sumlin join us on our set, and Bubba relives the excitement that was his trip to Dallas.
The Best of Mike and Mike.
Mike and Mike.
All right, congratulations, Randy Johnson. Congratulations, Pedro Martinez. Congratulations, John Smoltz, and congratulations, Craig Biggio, a four-man class for baseball's Hall of Fame for 2015, one of the biggest Hall of Fame inductee classes that they've ever had, the biggest in quite a few years. Buster Olney said it'll clear up a logjam, which is good. I don't fully understand why that would be.
I'm with you.
There are a lot of little nuances to the way they do this that I really don't understand and I do not like. We'll get to those in a moment, but let's start first by congratulating not only four worthy Hall of Famers.
Right.
I assume you don't have a problem with any of them going in.
None, not at all. And I'm happy for Craig Biggio. I actually was worried about that a little bit, needing 75% of last year, getting 74.8% thinking, and with the class this year of knowing, you know, that Pedro was going to get in, that Randy Johnson was going to get in, and I had thought Smoltz definitely was going to get in. Was he going to get hurt by that? And he didn't. He was well beyond what he needed, so I'm very happy that worked out. So I'm not shocked by any of those four. And then the talk will continue, obviously, here as well on should there have been more.
Right. So let's start with the percentages, because those are always interesting to see. Now, Randy Johnson got 97.3%, Pedro Martinez got 91.1%, John Smoltz 82.9%, and Craig Biggio 82.7%. The threshold is 75% for induction. I'd like to offer first and foremost a tip of the cap to the Mike and Mike listeners and viewers.
Boy, they hit it.
All of you who voted with us yesterday, you had three members. You were a discerning group. You were not easy at all.
No.
You did not just put everybody in. You didn't put Piazza in, and you didn't put Biggio in. Craig Biggio did not get in on the Mike and Mike vote. He got 67% of the Mike and Mike vote. But look how close the numbers were. Randy Johnson wound up getting 97.3% of the vote. With our listeners, he got 97.4%.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
John Smoltz, our listeners liked Smoltz a lot better than the writers did. But Pedro got 91.1% of the writers' vote. He got 90.2% with us. So first and foremost, a wonderful job done yesterday by all of you who voted with us on Mike and Mike, and we appreciate it. Now let's get to this. I understand why they do it, but I, for the life of me, will not understand why it is allowed. Someone, somewhere, needs to make a change. Because any person, in my opinion, who fills out a ballot for the Hall of Fame and does not check the box next to the name of Pedro Martinez, in my opinion, should not have a vote. It's just as simple as that. I don't care that I know he's going to get in, I want to cast a vote somewhere else. Now, hold on. You're either voting for someone to be in the Hall of Fame or you are not. And if you are not voting for Pedro Martinez to be in the Hall of Fame, I don't care if it took Joe DiMaggio 3 tries. I don't care if no one's ever gotten 100% of the vote. I don't care about any of that. You are one person voting for 10 people. And if you do not include Pedro Martinez, who for a period of... Pedro Martinez is the Sandy Koufax of his generation. For a period of time, he was as good a pitcher as there has ever been. And if you don't check the box next to Pedro Martinez, in my opinion, you shouldn't be allowed to vote in this.
You're saying Pedro Martinez. What about Randy Johnson? What about nobody has gotten 100%?
I would say the same for him.
I mean, we've been saying this every year. Every year, somebody or a number of people refuse to do it because they think they're doing their part to not let any player be a unanimous selection into the Hall of Fame.
Well, one of the things that we are now hearing is that they're complaining that they only get a limited number of votes, and so their thinking behind it is, well, I know Pedro's going to get in.
Yeah, he's
going to
Randy's
going to get in.
So I'm going to try and get this guy.
So I want to get Craig Biggio in.
And there's nothing wrong. Listen.
Well, so then let's work on the system. Let's talk about the system.
I would agree with that, because if I were voting and I thought that because I wanted Biggio in, there's a possibility, and I ran out of ballots, that I would do that. knowing that those guys are going to get in, but I want to make sure Biggio gets in. So if that's the thought process, well, there is the thought process. We know the ridiculous thought process that God forbid everybody vote for one person and it's a unanimous choice. God forbid that happens. I think the world actually would stop spinning.
Right.
Because it is not allowed. That would be the end of everything organized as we know it.
And more to the point, it would diminish Babe Ruth and it would diminish Hank Aaron, which obviously it would not do either of those.
The biggest joke of all time. So that said, the other way of, okay, I only have 10 slots to vote, and I know they're going to get in, and I want to try and get these guys votes. I understand that. So you're right. I would agree with you. It's something, then that's more to do with the system than the people doing the voting, if that's the thought process, because I would completely agree. I wanted to make sure Biggio got in because I knew Randy and Pedro were for sure getting in.
As to why I seized on Pedro versus Randy, two thoughts. One, Pedro got fewer votes, so more people didn't vote for him than voted for Randy Johnson. Two, and I know the numbers would indicate otherwise. If you told me I only had one vote and I could only vote one of those two guys in, I know the numbers would lean toward Randy Johnson. I know he has the second most strikeouts of anybody ever.
Right.
I'm telling you right now, I would vote for Pedro Martinez. Now, we're talking about the ultimate splitting of hairs.
We are.
It doesn't make any difference. I would obviously vote for both of them without even thinking about it. And that's the point. There should have been no thought given whatsoever to every single person checking the box next to those two names. Biggio, I think, more questionable. I don't have a problem with him getting in. Tim Kurkjian said he should have gotten in the first ballot. I respect Timmy beyond words. I have no issue with Biggio getting in. I absolutely thought Schmaltz should have gotten in, and I'm thrilled that he did. So I have no problem whatsoever with the class. And that brings you back, every time we yell and scream about this, which it seems we do every single year on this day, I do go back to something Jason Stark said on our show one year. We were yelling and screaming about, I forget who, it was the year that Paul Ledusky in Chicago said he wasn't, I think he didn't vote for Cal.
Right.
Because he just wasn't voting for anyone from the era. And we were yelling and screaming. And Jason Stark came on and he said, look, I understand what you're saying. I understand that there are problems. But show me the one egregious mistake that has been made. Meaning, show me the time Randy Johnson didn't get in at all.
At some point they get in, whether it's
or
the first, the third, the fifth.
Or Randy Johnson always gets in.
He was
that guy always gets in.
So the people we're talking about, and we scream they're not unanimous. I get it. I just hate the thought process behind it. But you know they're going to get in. So.
That's right. I hate the thought process.
The bottom line is they're in the Hall of Fame.
Correct. Right. And we sit there and we analyze the percentages. And, you know, if you got into the Hall of Fame, would you care about the percentage?
No.
I mean, in football, obviously, it's so different the way they do the voting. But if you were in there for this thing, would you care, well, I got 97-1. Well, I got 91-3.
I don't think I don't think that is the issue. I think it's when people, you wonder if they start to care if it's their fifth time instead of the second time or the first time. You know, it's Harry Carson in the NFL saying that he was not voted so many years that if he was voted in, he was going to turn it down.
I'll never forget that. He said that on our show.
Yep.
Harry Carson came on after having been snubbed yet again and said, if they vote me in, I refuse to go.
Which, of course, he did.
And then, of course, he didn't. He got voted in and he went and he was thrilled about it.
I think you get...
Well, Chris Carter, we have on all the time, is a perfect example of that. He didn't get in a couple of years, and when he got in, it's the thrill of his life.
You ask those people, I'm sure they go through a myriad of emotions, you know, of being bummed out to being... mad about it, to if it goes on for a few years being now numb to the whole thing. But I think once they finally get the call, I think all that is put aside and they're happy now. They're in the Hall of Fame.
So let's be fair then to those guys, to the baseball writers, okay? Randy Johnson never had to wait a second year.
No.
Derek Jeter isn't going to have to wait a second year. Cal Ripken, what are we arguing over? We're ultimately arguing over whether they got 98% of the vote or 94% of the vote. So I grant this is a very small consideration. There's another part of it that I think isn't quite as small. Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. More independent agents sell Progressive Insurance than any other brand. Find an agent at Progressive.com. Now that's Progressive. The next part of this obviously comes to the steroids and the tipping point with that. Because Mike Piazza comes up short. And I saw a lot of reaction yesterday to Piazza coming up short. And I know our own Bubba, who will join us a little later this morning with Love It or Shove It and talk about his trip down here to Dallas for the Cowboys game and everything else. He's a crazy Met fan. He was extremely disappointed Piazza didn't get in yesterday. And so when I saw a lot of that flurry, I was sitting in the airport, which I did for 4 hours yesterday, and I just threw a tweet out there and I said, why is Mike Piazza not in the Hall of Fame? And I put Jason Stark, Buster Olney, Tim Kurkjian, Ken Rosenthal, and Bob Nightingale on it, all the baseball writers that I follow. And the first one to write back was Buster, and he wrote back 2 words, steroid suspicion. Suspicion.
Suspicion.
Well, that is where you get into a really tough area for me, because I understand if you're a voter, you want to take it extraordinarily seriously. I would. If I were a voter, I would take it incredibly seriously. To me, the Hall of Fame is a big deal. You want to do the very best you can. And I suppose if I was in that situation and I was one who believed that a player involved in steroids should not be anywhere near the Hall of Fame, that maybe I would consider doing what these guys who did not vote for Piazza did. But at the end of the day, Mike, can you deprive a person of this honor based upon your suspicion? No proof, no evidence that I'm aware of. I mean, no hard evidence that I'm aware of besides mood swings and back knee, both of which I've had, that he does not belong in the Hall of Fame.
And we know you were never on steroids.
And I assure you, I have never used any performance-enhancing
You are the
drug.
ultimate before picture.
Yeah, that's exactly.
So, yeah.
I am the before photo, and Mike Piazza is the after. But all kidding aside,
absolutely.
is there a shred of fairness in that?
Not one bit of fairness because you suspect the guy did not put him in. I think you're over the line on that one. And listen, I'm with you. I understand those that don't want to vote in those that used and were proven to have used. I get it. We both disagree. We both would put him in and let the Hall tell the story of that. But suspicion is ridiculous. Piazza went up this year to 69%. I think he's getting it eventually, don't you?
Yes, I do.
I absolutely do. So now we've crossed.
Listen, the whole problem with getting in eventually is, and I don't even want to bring this up, but God forbid something happens to him.
I know.
I mean, waiting a year in every person's life, you don't just have a year to wait. They only put 4 guys in. There's no limit on how many you can put in. Putting in Mike Piazza would not have in any way endangered the election of Randy Johnson, John Smoltz, Pedro Martinez, or Craig Biggio.
See, the one thing that's different about, you correct me if you think I'm wrong, about the Football and Baseball Hall of Fame is, Baseball Hall of Fame, when you look at the list of votes, you can say, well, this guy's never getting in, this guy's not getting in, this guy. Now, we think Piazza's going to get in at some point, but a lot of those guys we think are not going to get in, or it's going to be a long, long time. In the Football Hall of Fame, it's, oh, he's getting in, he just has to wait his turn.
Right.
Oh, he's getting in, there's just a logjam there. Oh, he's getting in, it's just a matter of time.
Well, I think I have a little bit of that in baseball. I mean, I think there is a sense
a
that
little
Piazza
more
is
than a lot. Yeah, well, no. That's what I said.
We thought Craig Biggio would get in eventually, and this was his
and he
year.
did. In football, I think there are more of those, depending on your position, that there's more of a long jam that we actually have Hall of Famers out there just kind of waiting for a line to go down or enough years to go by.
I'm dying to know what Buster Olney is trying to tell me. Buster is sending me emails on something that we're talking about, and we have massive technical things going on here. I don't have the ability to open them. So I want the world to know Buster has a message for us, and I don't know what it is.
Just try, Buster. Can't open it. We'll get it.
Hopefully we will get it. Buster, if it's worth it, call us and let us know what it is, because I'm dying to hear what it is you're trying to say, and I don't have the ability to open the email. So one way or another, again, the most important part of this, overwhelmingly so, is the guys who got in. They're all deserving.
Yes,
congratulations to them all. Roger Clemens and Barry Bonds. In your opinion, will they ever get in? Because there's Mike Piazza with the suspicion, and then there's Roger Clemens and Barry Bonds, who, while neither has ever admitted to using performance-enhancing drugs publicly, there is more than suspicion. There is actual evidence in both cases.
Yeah, their votes went up 2.1%. So not a ton, from 34.7 to 36.8 for Bonds, 35.4 to 37.5 for Clemens, meaning they have a long, long way to go. And as slow as it's going up, I don't know. I don't know if Piazza going in breaks the barrier for guys like Clemens and Bonds. So I had said over time, I thought guys like that would eventually get in, but it could be a long, long time unless there is a real changeover in writers, in voters, I should say, at some point, to where they're going to let some of that go and get them in the Hall and let the Hall decide it. If not, I think it could be a long. I'll still say, because it's only been, 3 times?
No.
I'll still say over time they will, but
I think it's going to be a very long time. All right, we are Mike and Mike. We're live in Fort Worth. We're presented by Progressive Insurance. Great guests today, including John Gruden, an hour from now on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline. In 1 minute, we will answer the question, and all of this discussion about performance-enhancing drugs and everything else. What is it, the one thing that we always say we want in life now, from our public figures, from our governmental officials, and in sports? We want transparency.
Yes, we do.
But in 1 minute, I'm going to ask you the question, is there such a thing as too much transparency?
The best of Mike and Mike.
best of Mike and Mike.
Mike and Mike.
We had quite the day yesterday.
That's my alarm. That's how my alarm
Yeah,
sets.
I mean,
I got to get up and do a show with you, and my alarm's saying that.
I'm not going to lie to you. That was a tough one. This was a tough
It was.
wake-up call this morning. But we're thrilled to be down here.
We are.
Obviously, Monday will be great. Huge NFL playoff weekend and all the rest of that. But before we can fully turn the page to next weekend, there is still some business to be taken care of from last weekend. Mike, I think there are a couple of things in life you can't be too much, right? You can't be too handsome.
Well.
I'm living proof of that.
Well,
You can't be too rich.
I don't even know where to go.
I hope someday to be living proof
We'd
of
love
that.
to find that out. I'd love to wake up someday, and you know what? I just have too gosh darn much money.
Too much money. I just can't figure out what I'm going to do
What
with
am
all
I
this
going to do
money.
now?
And the other thing that you would ordinarily think is you can't be too transparent. Maybe that one isn't actually true. I think the National Football League has to stop telling the Lions they cost them this game. Okay? First, they had to come out. They had Dean Blandino, again, I credit him for it. He came out and said they shouldn't have picked up the flag. There should have been better mechanics with the referee, Pete Morelli. It should have been defensive holding. He basically, in every single way, told the Lions, yes, we botched the call
We blew it,
that
sorry.
everyone talked about.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
they've told them they blew another call.
Even after that call, they blew another call.
The NFL acknowledged to the Lions yesterday that officials missed a blatant hold on Ndamukong Suh on the fourth down conversion from Tony Romo to Jason Witten with 6 minutes left in the game, a source tells our Adam Schefter. The play in question comes after the controversial Brandon Pettigrew play, and it was just before the touchdown that Romo throws that winds up winning the game. If the holding had been called, it would have been 4th and 16 for the Cowboys. Dallas likely would have punted. Detroit still would have had the lead. So as we said about the other call, we cannot with certainty tell you that they would have won the game.
No.
The other thing we can say with certainty is that holding calls are missed probably
All
on
the time.
every play
All the
in
time.
every game.
Yes.
So why is the league telling the Lions this?
I don't know, because I didn't hear the fervor about this, that obviously we saw the flags. I mean, that became national news and hit social media right away. Listen, I watch the game all the time, and maybe biased because a defensive lineman say, oh, there was some holding there, recognizing certainly they're not going to call it on every play, and if they don't call it, it wasn't holding. I have a son now as an offensive lineman, and I get that. Get away with it if you can. But you see it, and it's holding. Sometimes it gets called, sometimes it doesn't. So that's why it's tough for me to lose my mind over this, outside of the Detroit Lions losing their mind, being told yet again and again and again how, it's the old Monday letter. We got them as a team, and the teams are out on as a player when the film gets sent in, and they send you that letter that says, you know what, you're right, sorry, but nothing else happened.
What did you do with the letter?
Well, that was usually the coach's job to do something with the letter. Nothing good. It was never framed, and it's not in anybody's office. Let me tell you that right
Did
now.
you ever set fire? Did you actually set fire to the letter?
No, not set fire, but I think one coach did say what he would like to do with the letter if he was at the NFL office.
All right, let's keep that one just between ourselves.
Yeah.
One way or another, the only thing, and I'm assuming now, maybe we can call Shefty and ask him, what I'm assuming is they must have turned that play into the league. They must have asked the league.
You do it every week. Every
Right.
week you get plays turned in, whether it's you think it's a play that your player got hit illegally and it's a safety issue, or hey, a blatant penalty that you missed. What do you do? Yes, that happens every single week.
I mean, I can't imagine Dean Blandino just took it upon himself
No.
unprompted and just called up and said, you know what, remember that call we missed? There's another one.
Yeah.
This one was even worse.
You think that was bad?
Boy, did you guys get screwed. So one way or another, and you know who has even chimed in on all of this?
Yeah.
In one moment you were going to hear that the most powerful person in the world has chimed in on all of this. Mike and Mike again live in Fort Worth this morning for the College Football Playoff National Championship. Our coverage is brought to you in part by Napa Auto Parts. You will hear what the most powerful person in the world thought of that call. You will hear the answer to the question, why does Dallas have an excellent chance to beat the Packers at Lambeau Field? I have that answer. And you'll hear how we were one bad shot away from seeing something no one was expecting. All those and a whole lot more just getting started live from Texas. We're Mike and Mike.
The best of Mike and Mike.
It is our pleasure to welcome, as I said earlier so poetically, he is in the house.
Oh, my God.
He is the coach of the TCU Horned Frogs off of a tremendous season and a magnificent bowl game performance. Gary Patterson is with us here this morning. Pleasure to have you, Coach. How are you?
Thanks, Mike.
Now, here's what I want to ask you about. Before we get to anything else, you had dinner last night with McShay, and you're taking him all over the place, and everyone's talking about what a nice guy you are, and you said that there are two different people. There's Gary, and then there's Coach P, i.e. Coach Patterson. What is the difference between Gary, sitting here with us right now, and the football coach somewhere inside of you?
Well, you know, defensive coaches, number one, never get many chances to be head coaches. So, you know, I'm one of these laser eyes. You see, you know, most people know me with that 3 hours on TV on Saturday, and Gary's that guy that grew up in a town of 175 people from western Kansas, and you know, it's about people, it's about kids' lives, about growing them up, doing all those kind of things. So my wife says she loves Gary. She's not sure about Coach P either. So.
Let me tell you what, if you saw Coach P, you wouldn't be able to handle
No, look,
that.
we all see it on TV. But, I mean, is it something that is that a switch that you turn on
That's what the player side
purposely?
Yeah.
I get it with the players, though, because the players are going to hit somebody. But is that, okay, now it's the game. You wake up Saturday morning. You're 5 hours away from the start of the game. Is it building? Is Coach P, is it like the Hulk starting to emerge?
I think it's one of those situations where, you know, you teach kids in life, you know, you can't take home to work, can't take work to home. You got to learn how to flip the switch. And I've tried to be that guy when I first started as a head coach, kind of stoic, quiet. And, you know, I think my teams played like that. And I said, well, I think I was 2-2 and they were already ready to fire me my first year as a head coach. I said, well, if I'm going to go down, then I'm going to go down it my way. And so I've kind of been that guy, you know, tied his shoes, hitches his pants, do it. You know, nobody wants to embarrass themselves on national TV, but you just do what you do. And so, you know, 33 years later, here we are.
So we'll get into what went on through this season. We certainly talked about it, documented it, and you absolutely took the high road through this thing. And a lot of times you're not sure what happens going to a bowl game. When you're not at the bowl, you want to be what's going to happen, and you guys destroy Ole Miss, so you guys all, your heads were in the right place. So you handle everything the way you do. All that said, when you're watching Oregon play Florida State and Alabama play Ohio State, did you watch that? Were you in a bad mood, a good mood? Were you just in a private moment where you're like, I am so ticked that we should be playing in one of these games?
Well, I don't think you can do this business unless you have a little bit of confidence level that you wanted to be a part of it. I think that's why we do it. All of us want to win a national championship. All of us want to be it. You know, I watch everything that goes on in the world nowadays. Whether it's politics, whether it's college football, everybody, the only thing they want to do is they want to tear something down. And so I watched the night before. I saw how the games went. I know public perception becomes a very strong point. Some people played very well. And so, you know, I didn't even watch the show at 11:45. I went on to start practice. I knew at 1:45 they were going to tell me who I was going to play, and at 2:30 out of team meeting, you're ready to go. You know, when we were in the Mountain West Conference USA, we were always outside the circle. So my patience level has been a lot higher because, you know, even to get in the Rose Bowl, let's think about this. It had to be written in the bylaws that a non-BCS team could go. The Pac-10 team had to be playing for the national title, which was Oregon. We had to be the highest-ranked team. We had to go undefeated. I mean, you had all these things laid out. And even sitting on a Friday night before the last game of the season in Albuquerque, New Mexico, it still came down to Boise State had to get beat by Reno for TCU to get into the Rose Bowl. And so for me, you know, I watched it. I've watched TCU grow. And, you know, if we're going to teach kids lessons, then you've got to be able to do it yourself. And so I just felt like for college football and for a lot of different means, it was better for me to do things the way I needed to do it. Because we need, you know, there's never going to be a perfect system. Whether it's politics, whether it's football, or whether it's anything, it's never going to be a perfect one. And so I just decided that somebody needed to do it the different way because I'd watched everybody for the last month tear each other down on Twitter and everything else because we're the team. And like I did, you congratulate them all. And, you know, every fan base, every football team, every coaching staff thinks, every coach's wife thinks their team is the team that should be there.
Mike and Coach P, Gary Patterson at TCU. And so you go out, as you said, you got your team ready to play a game. It was a big game against a very good opponent, and you won very convincingly, 42-3. People wondered, was TCU sending a message? Were you sending a message? What message did you send with that performance?
Well, the first goal for us is always have the best season our senior class can have. But I think our kids did want to prove a point. You know, they hadn't been to a bowl because we were 4-8 a year ago, only the second time in our history since we've been there. We haven't been, but we went back to good on good, knew the kind of team we're going to have to play, but it didn't take much to motivate them. I talked really a lot more about beating an Ole Miss team that beat Alabama, that beat Mississippi State, and if we want to prove that we were one of the top 3 teams in college football, then what we were going to have to do is we're going to have to prove it on the field because everybody else had talked about it. And, we could talk about it, but if we wanted to talk about it, we really we needed to do it with what we did. And so that's really was their goal, was to do that. And I told them I would set up practices to put them in a position within a month to get them to that position.
What a position it was, just destroying Ole Miss. I think of it from a player's standpoint, because you've learned you just explained why you've learned the patience. Well, 18 to 22-year-olds don't have the patience, so they see themselves with a number 3 ranking, go out and take care of their business, and then drop all the way to 6. So while that had to really aggravate the heck out of you and your coaches, what did you tell the players? Because I don't believe they took it as well as you may have publicly.
Well, no, because they're the ones that put up the fight. But I think that they handled it pretty well, and I think our fan base handled it better than what they would have, that if I would have taken a different road. Probably my discussion, all would have to be, they probably shouldn't have put us at 3. You could have probably argued 4 a lot easier. I understood 5 or 6 because you take yourself out of the argument of Baylor beat us at home, if you want to use the home and home deal. And so you're outside the 4, what difference does it make if you put us 5 or you put us 6? Probably the message I thought was a little bit off was they moved 7 and 10 around when they didn't even play. And my reason for going to the playoffs was we were going to take all the nonsense out of college football, and we were going to put it in the hands of a committee and make sure that we were going to do the right thing. We were going to pick the top whatever amount of teams, and we were going to do it for the right reasons. But that was the one I didn't understand. I didn't understand the 7 and 10 move. Now you can argue, well, you get more teams from the Big Ten into the bowl season and do all those kind of things. But if we're going to do it, then we got to do it for the right reasons. If I'm going to stand up and take the high road, and I think going forward, I got to be part of that process along with a lot of other people to make sure that happens.
Mike and Mike, Gary Patterson, you're never going to get all the nonsense out of college football. I think we go in the right direction. We're here in Fort Worth for the College Football Playoff National Championship, brought to you by Walmart. Speaking of the nonsense, if you will, one of the big questions that comes up every year through the college football season are questions about the concept of amateurism and everything else. An announcement yesterday that I think didn't get quite enough attention, at least in my opinion, was the announcement that the families of the kids who are going to play in these playoff games now and all that, and the kids who make the Final Four in college basketball, the men's and the women's, that they're going to be able to be reimbursed by the NCAA or by the schools to travel with them, actually go. What a novel concept. The families should actually be able to go watch their kids play on these huge stages in the moments of their lives. So I applaud that. I am one who is an enormous critic of some of the amateurism rules and some of the ways that the student athletes are treated. From your perspective, where we sit today, when you can sit back a little, you're kind of in a little bit of a quiet time. When you sit back, where do you think we are with that? You've been in the business 30 years. Where are we right now with our concepts about amateurism, and where do you think it's going?
Well, number one, I think it's good that we're going to take care of the families. I think it's good that we're doing more for the student athlete. I still think that there is a price, that there's a price tag on the degree that you get. And I think one of the things we can't get away from is what a college degree means. Only 1% goes to the NFL, all the things that go along with it. So, knowledge is power. Whether it's the college student, the student athlete, or just coaches in general, I think always abuse leads to restriction. And so I think you got to be careful about salaries on the college level. What at some point TV goes, for whatever reason, ever bid, and you don't have it, so then you don't have that payout. So how do you fund college athletics and get everything done that needs you to get done? So I'm about, in the next 100 years, that guys that were young coaches can have an opportunity like I've had to go be that guy. I want to make sure that student athletes, because what I'm worried about is right now everybody talks about the who's and the haves and the have-nots of who's inside the Big Five conference, who's not. Well, we've already seen one university drop football. Means that's 85 scholarships of kids who aren't going to get an opportunity to go get a degree. And so for me, I think whoever's making these decisions needs to understand that we need to make decisions for the right reasons, and it's for longevity of what I think is an unbelievable sport. It brings a lot of people together. It brings a lot of fans, students, people that have a lifetime of memories. And so the end of my window is about up. You know, you're 54 years old. You've been in the business 33 years. So how do you move this thing forward? And so that's what I'm about.
Don't say your window's up.
Hey, windows
I
up.
don't want to feel like that.
Yeah, Golik's window is much closer to being up than
Way
yours.
closer. And on that note, how surprising, what do you think of the move? You know, we talk about college coaches, and your name certainly has been out there with other college coaches rumored to talk about going to the NFL. Here you had an NFL coach in Jim Harbaugh who could have had another NFL job and chose to come back to college. Certainly not the way that you see it done a lot. What did you think about that move?
Well, no, I think it's good for college football. Coach Harbaugh is a great coach. He brings a flair about him, you know, and I think it always helps all of us to have another name in the business that people want to talk about. You're going to recruit against, you're going to play against. I think it's good for us. I think just like a Chip Kelly, I think if he ever decides to do that, it would help college football as they fluctuate. I think it also proves if he comes back, it helps all of us because Jim and Chip have shown that you can go from this level to that level and be successful. Then you can also come back, and if they can be successful, I think it helps all. Again, and you go back to the thing I was just talking about. You know, it helps younger coaches. And we all move forward.
Well, with the style of play that is now, whoever would have thought 20 years ago we'd be talking about how the pros are studying the colleges to figure out how they should run their offenses, but that line gets a little bit blurred.
Mike and Mike.
Let's take a moment here and bring in our beloved
Yes.
Bubba.
Yes.
Brendan Peregrine, our board operator, his nickname is Bubba for reasons, again, known only to him. And he won this wager with you. I didn't think he had a chance in the world of winning. Cowboys had a miracle season, and as a result, Golik had to send Bubba, and as it turned out, his father, which is wonderful, basically down here to Dallas. He went to the game Sunday, got to see a thriller. So rather than his usual love it or shove it with questions, let's just love a few minutes of Bubba this morning. Bubba back in the studio. He's got the cowboy hat on. He's got the Dez jersey working. He's got the towel going. What do you think, Bubba?
Oh, yeah,
How much fun
Cowboys.
was the experience?
Oh, so it was great. It was, once in a lifetime chance. AT&T was rocking. I mean, first definitely wanted to thank Golik and Chris. They paid up for the bet 100%. It was awesome. My dad and I had a great time.
I think one of the best lines, Bubba, and you can deliver it if you remember what you had told me when you were talking about the flight. We flew him and his dad first class, and I think if Bubba said it's the first time he's ever flown for it, he's going, I don't know if I can ever go back to coach. What was the line you said you kept saying in first class?
Yeah, keep the beers coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't do coach ever again. I'm first class all the way now. I'm too spoiled. The whole time they're delivering omelets and sandwiches and the warm hot towel. I don't know what was going on with that. I didn't know where to put that, but I took it. And then the beers are flowing. Yeah, I'll take another one. Sure. You want another one? Sure. I'll take another one. Let's go.
That's wonderful. What was the reaction of the people seated around you, Bubba, to your presence in first class? I'm just curious.
They just left us alone for the most part. My dad, we were in the kind of the back right corner, so we kind of had our own little area. My dad always talks to everyone, so anyone he sees with the Cowboys, he starts throwing up the X. He starts talking to people about stuff, and so he's socializing with everyone. But we're for the most part, we're kind of just left by ourselves.
All right, now let's hear about the stadium experience. I know that Golik put you in a hotel that you were able to walk to the stadium.
Yeah, we were right next to the stadium, which ended up being perfect. I mean, Golik and I were talking, do we want to stay in Dallas or stay in Arlington? But we said it makes more sense to stay in Arlington to be close to the stadium, and we ended up being literally within walking distance. So we literally just walked 15 minutes to the stadium and walked back, and I think if we didn't do that, I think we might still be there with the amount of cars that were parking and leaving. So that worked out great. So yeah, that was perfect. And then the game was awesome. Right on the third level, right in the end zone, looking out. I tweeted out some pictures. And first half was a little worried about what was going on with that, but second half was awesome. It was unbelievable.
And it sounded on the television, unlike generally in the regular season, where the stadium sometimes almost sounds like a de facto road game for the Cowboys, and at least you'll hear some visiting fans, as I would have expected in the playoffs where the fans would not have sold their tickets. It sounded like it was very loud and very much pro-Cowboys.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I was pleasantly. I kind of assumed it would, being a playoff game, first time in a while, plus Detroit being pretty far away. But yeah, it was at least 95, if not, 99% full of Cowboys fans. They were going crazy the entire time. The crowd was great. Like I said, they passed out these towels. So we were waving them the whole time. And yeah, I mean, even with being down 14-0, the crowd was really into it the whole first half, and every third down they would be standing up. So we were losing our voice by the end of the game. But yeah, it was great to see all the Cowboys fans. And like I also tweeted out, it felt great to go into a game. Normally I go to like a Cowboys game at Giant Stadium and just get harassed the entire time, just swearing at me, screaming at me. So it felt good to go with my equals for once.
And how was, I still haven't been in a game in Jerry's World there, and from what you said, you made it sound like it really is Jerry's World there with all the things you can do.
Oh, yeah, I mean, the stadium is unbelievable. I think they should just cancel any other event, just have every event there. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's the craziest stadium I've ever seen. I mean, it was just, we were walking around, there was no lines for food or bathroom. It's unbelievable. They got all the art on the walls that they talk about, and just the scoreboard is obviously unbelievable. Yeah, I mean, they should just have every Super Bowl there from now on.
And then finally, Bubba, I guess we have to get your unbiased perspective on the flag that got picked up. First of all, what was it like in the stadium while that was going on? What did you perceive to be happening? And in the end, did you think it was the right call?
Well, kind of just like on TV, most of the fans missed it because they made the announcement and everyone just went crazy booing. And so we were all just kind of booing. And then all of a sudden we just hear there's no flag on the play. And all of us were like looking around, what? Oh, yeah. And then we had no idea why. But, and, it was tough for us to they showed the replay, a couple times. It was tough for us to see. But I think it was fairly clear there was no penalty on the play and they made the right call.
Okay. And Bubba, we'll make sure we get you in Thursday or Friday to get your preview.
Yeah, well, I think most importantly, I don't know what Jerry Jones is talking about with this Chris Christie mojo. It's clearly Guy and Bubba have the mojo. So, Jerry, let's get me up to Green Bay and let's get down to business here. Because clearly we're going to get the win.
Let's start a movement. Let's start a movement to get Bubba and his dad to Lambeau
Let's start another movement because I know who ain't sending them.
Okay, I get it.
Okay?
That's fair.
I thought the bet was for every playoff game. No?
No, this was the wager you paid off. Fair and square, and you did a very good job. First class, put him in the hotel he wanted.
Yeah, now it's on Jerry. I mean, come on.
Now we need to find our little way. I think we're going to see Jerry Jones tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken. So let's see if we can't find some way to get Bubba up to Lambeau
I think that's
Field.
the move. Yeah.
All right, I'll clean his glasses if I have to. I don't mind.
All right, Bubba, well done. And congratulations. I can't tell you how good I felt for Bubba.
We did too. Even my wife tweeted. She said, I was actually happy that ESPN Gold lost that bet because it was nice to see Bubba with his father at the game. It was a cool thing.
It was. I mean, like I said, the first, it would have been awesome no matter what. In the first half, it was a struggle, but the coming back, to be there for the comeback was so awesome and definitely a once in a lifetime experience. So we definitely really appreciate it. We had a great time.
Thank you, Bubba. Congratulations. I think everyone is happy. Love it or shove it this week. We definitely love it.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Mike and Mike.
The head coach at Texas A&M, it is Kevin Sumlin. Coach, thank you so much for coming down to see us. How are you?
Appreciate it, guys.
You look great in coat and tie. Way too dressed for this show.
Well, I thought about that, but they gave me a hard time outside on the way here. So it's on the set. So, no, it's my pleasure to be here.
It is our pleasure to have you, and there's so much to get into. I want to start, though. We'll start with what's going on here, and then we'll work our way through you and your season and everything else. I want to talk about the offense that your team runs and that so many college football teams run in this day and age, and that we're really seeing taken to the next level in the National Football League, and the philosophy behind it. Because I remember for years I would say to Golick, well, this spread offense, every team in college runs it. Why don't the teams in the pros run it? Now I'm looking at Oregon. They're running the play every 12 seconds.
Right.
And I'm saying the same thing to Golick. Why doesn't every team do that? Why doesn't every team, if you can wear the defense out, if that tempo is such a devastating weapon, why isn't everyone, or at least a lot more teams, doing it?
Well, the philosophy behind it was that you could take lesser athletes and play against better players and neutralize guys over the course of time. And so as you get programs that have better athletes, you're starting to see that happen. And there's 3 or 4 teams in the SEC. You've seen Oregon do it for a long time. You've seen Chip take it to the NFL, and a lot of guys understand a little bit about it, but they don't understand everything about it. And it's nothing you can dabble in. It's who you are. I think that it's changed football a lot. Kind of like the wishbone changed maybe 50 years ago, but it's nothing. It's either who you are or who you're not. And certain teams change tempo. Other teams, that's who they are. And I think Oregon's doing a great job with it.
Do you think the number of teams doing that full time, because there's doing that some and then conventional some, we know that. But as Oregon does it full time, do you think football, college football anyway, is gearing that way? And we'll see more of that where teams actually say this is now our identity?
Well, I don't know if that's happened. I think it happened 3-4 years ago. Guys are jumping into it now or just jumping into it. So, you know, I don't know that it's changed football so much as it is certain programs. And there are a lot of coaches that understand that. It changed the Eagles, I'll put it that way, and put them on the map. And I think Chip is so far ahead with what he's done, not just from a football standpoint, but off the field standpoint, and how they practice and do things. The big question was in the NFL was, can a 35, 38, 28-year-old play at that pace? And what they've done, not just on Sunday, but during the week to manage bodies, I think that's been a big difference.
The training and the nutrition and all of that stuff. That's been, pardon me, much talked about. Mike and Kevin Sumlin. Then let's get back to what we were discussing right before you got here. When your program in Missouri made the move from the Big 12 to the SEC, I think there was a conventional wisdom that said, boy, they're should be prepared to get their hats handed to them for a little while, at least until they sort of gear up. And your program in Missouri too, in the SEC championship game almost immediately, and your program as well, opening so many eyes going into Alabama and winning. What did you perceive to be the difference in the level of play when you made that conference move?
We weren't there, so it's different for Coach Pinkel and Missouri. I just came from Houston, so the SEC was a little bit different, and probably we probably benefited from the fact we didn't know. So we just came in and did what we did, and we've got a great fan base, we've got a great location, and we've got great support, and that's what makes our place a pretty good place to be. And so we haven't done what we wanted to do, but we're getting there, and I think playing in this league has been a real challenge, but it's also one of the best leagues to play in. And everybody talks about the bowl games and those, what happened with the SEC. We won more games, won 7 games. And I think what you've seen, just to be honest with you, I think the elite teams in every league, the Pac-12, the Big 12, Big 10, the elite teams are elite teams. And when you talk about leagues, let's talk about them from top to bottom. And we're still in one of the best leagues there is.
Given the climate of where we are with the start of this playoff system and some of the things that the committee is looking at, is there any doubt in your mind where you left that conference, the Big 12, is going to try and either add a couple of teams, do whatever they have to do to have a conference championship game?
I'd put it on you to put me on the spot. I don't know. That's
but it doesn't seem commonsensical that's because an extra game is an extra game. I mean, we're human beings. I mean, just take you and I. If you get to see one more game from somebody and they get one more chance to look great in that game, doesn't that seem to work in your favor?
Here's the hard part. It's college football. It's not pro football.
Right.
And so, you take the teams that are going to play Monday night, they're going to play 15 games.
Right.
You add 8 teams, they're going to play 16 games. These guys go to school. Mm-hmm. So, we've got a lot of things we got to deal with through the Christmas break. We'll end up playing in the next semester with that, which that's not right. So we're not talking about pro football. We're talking about college football. And in my opinion, you're right. 5 and 6 are always going to be mad. You add 8.
9 and 10 are going to be mad.
9 and 10 are going to be mad. So that's the way it is. But, I think that they got it right. We're talking about it. And the biggest point I think has been made is that it's no longer a regional conversation. People in the South were watching Oregon. People in the West were watching Ohio State, maybe for the first time ever, to figure out where their teams are going to be. And that was the big point. College football now is as big as it's ever been.
No, it was an enormous win for the sport, there's no doubt. Kevin Sumlin here with his Subway Fresh Take, the new Simple 6 menu at Subway, 6 subs, 6 meals, just $6 each. Subway, eat fresh. Let's talk a little bit about your season, because I remember sitting and watching your team open against South Carolina thinking, oh my goodness, here we go. And then it was a season with some enormous performances and then some real struggles. It wasn't a straight line. There was a lot of ups and a lot of downs. What accounts for that? To what do you attribute?
Well,
that?
we're a young team. You know, we had a first-year quarterback, and everybody wanted to know, you know, post-Johnny football, what's going to happen. You know, we got a lot of freshmen playing. I went on the road the first football game, national football game of the year, and played very, very well. But, you know, this league, and you guys know, it's a grind. And we had some guys hit a wall. We didn't manage it very well, but I think that we'll grow out of that. And we finished our bowl game pretty strong. So, you know, everything in place. All those guys are going to be back, and we're going to be pretty good here coming up.
And you mentioned Johnny Manziel, and so much attention on now what's happened with him this year, and we'll ask you your perspective on that. But first, I think here's the perfect example of something like this. How do you quantify what having a player like that means to a program and to a university? I mean, some people look at the stadium that you're building and say it's the house that Johnny built and all the rest of that. How do you quantify the value to a football program of having a player with the star magnitude of a guy like Johnny Manziel?
Well, you know, you look around the country, and there are a lot of guys that have done that, and you know, win a Heisman, become a polarizing figure, and on the field, off the field, you can say what you want, but what a great college football player, and you know, the value of that, you know, who knows, but. You know, I think that every year you're going to have those guys. And, you know, what's the difference between him and a lot of other guys that played college football? I don't know. We were fortunate to have him. I mean, and he did a great job for us. And, you know, the rest remains to be seen. But you know, you can't put a number on that. You can't put a number on everything else. But I think that there's no doubt that he had a huge part in getting us off of, you know, off of go and getting us moving.
And you must have, at some point, to whatever degree you could, paid some attention to his first year in the NFL this season, where there were a lot of question marks and the very little bit that he got on the field that didn't go so well, and some of the stuff off of the field. In your mind, where is he right now from a maturity standpoint? A lot of people look at him and say the kid needs to grow up and understand his responsibilities. To whatever degree you are in contact with him and you still deal with him and know him, where does he need to mature?
I think, you know, playing is, you know, he loves to play football, and it's hard when you're not. And obviously it didn't go very, very well when he did, and that didn't help. You know, but there are some things that, you know, when you leave college and you get to professional football, he's going to do off the field. He gets that, and I think that, you know, there's certain things under the magnifying glass that he hadn't been able to handle. And that's part of being a professional. So, you know, where that is and what he's doing, you know, I don't know. We talk, and we talk about it weekly. But playing football is something he likes to do, and when things don't go well on the field, you know, that might translate to some other things too.
And we're going to start talking about what's going on here, but just to finish that up, it seems like anybody else, when you go from college to pro, it's a learning process. He just learns, like a lot of guys who are in position, and he was in one of those, under an unbelievable microscope. So whether you make a mistake, it's magnified. But also, in my opinion, I still have questions about him on the field from the pocket and such, but it's about that you really learn of the business that professional football is and what the expectation is.
It's a different deal. And you know, it's like, it's a bigger transition from high school, I mean, from college to pro than high school, like Kyle Allen, the guy we have right now, who came in, was the #1 guy in high school, and after he played his first game, people don't believe this, he was more nervous to play against UL Monroe than he was against Auburn, because it was his first start, and he'd never been out there. And I said after that game, he learned more about himself than we learned about him, just what he could do at the collegiate level that he couldn't do in high school. It's a bigger jump than the pros.
And increasingly, a lot of these players, not to make excuses, but they're doing it at a younger age. I mean, Manziel was only in college the short time. Winston, if he goes, will only have had the few years. So there are those factors to look at as well. Let's run our way through a couple of things that happened. Your bowl game, you were one of the teams from the SEC that did win. You mentioned they did win 7 games. All the attention was on all the losing that they did. Yours was one of those where you emerged victorious, but a lot of attention to something that happened on your sideline with one of your graduate assistants who
It's a student assistant.
Student assistant, excuse me, a student assistant.
Player who got hurt wasn't playing.
Let's face it, just did some stuff that he shouldn't have done. Can you, when you're a head coach and you see that, I saw the statement you released and all the rest of that.
Right.
When you're a head coach and you first become aware that this has happened, what thoughts go through your mind?
You know, first of all, you're on the sideline. I didn't see it, and when somebody brought it to my attention, we addressed it at halftime. He didn't come out for the second half.
Right.
Then when I got to see the video, you know, he was dismissed. So, you know, you got so many things going on as a head coach. You know, you're not a fan. You're coaching the game, and you know that's something that we're not about. It's something that we don't want to be a part of. And as soon as I was made aware of it, we addressed it. So, you know, that's not who we are, not what we're about, and nothing we're going to accept.
Clearly. Clearly not.
Yeah, similarly an emotion of a guy, but in this day and age of social media, I mean, within a minute, it's everywhere.
And you know, and Mike was a player that played as a freshman. Actually had a broken vertebrae in his neck as a freshman. Played well for us, was frustrated, and probably wanted to play in the game. And you know, that's still no excuse as a young player. You know, what we've tried to do with all our players who have been injured or anything that's happened, make sure they get their degree. And emotions can run really, really high for young people, but that's still no place for that to happen.
And you know, staying before we get to this game, in the world of Twitter, when you tweet something, it's out there. You have a tough relationship with your pool guy?
What happened with that? What is this story, Coach?
I mean, you want to talk about something out of nowhere.
Oh, come on.
What, I mean, but when it gets tweeted, obviously it goes everywhere.
We try to teach lessons to young people. And, you know, I've got a great company that built my pool. And you're going to get me in real trouble here right now. His boss is a good friend. Right. And I've known him for a long time. This is my second stint back in College Station, and I've known him for a while. And then, you know, I was on the phone. Obviously, everybody wanted to know who we're going to hire as the D coordinator, and it was actually I was on the phone with John Chavis at the time. He's looking through the pool, and I'm coming out in the car, and he's still standing around looking. And you know, the message is, if you come to somebody's house and somebody hires you, you know, whatever you're doing, it's a little bit personal, you know, and so if you're invading privacy, it's not a public deal, and Twitter's public. So, you know, guess what? Don't come back.
I thought it was a great tweet. I loved it. I just brought it. I thought it was.
I fully agree, and I fully agree with you.
Absolutely.
But it also can be a good learning experience for your players, because we've talked about this many times on the show. That it's one thing for us to be our age and yourself, and you see things on Twitter about you. I'm not talking about instances like this, but when people say things about you, message boards, all the stuff that players have to deal with. When you're an adult, you can process that and understand it and put it in its fair place. For young people, that's very difficult. And how do you handle that as far as social media and all of the things that your players have to deal with?
We bring in people and we talk about social media awareness and what's good and and guys are going to make mistakes and think before you tweet. I mean, a lot of things, and think before you do a lot of different things. And that's easier said than done with young people, because we've all been young, we've all done stupid things. And you know, the hard part is on Twitter, on any social media, Snapchat, all that stuff, that, you know, once it's out there, it's out there. And we do media training for our players. Everybody gave me a hard time, including some people here, about not letting our freshmen talk. We have a responsibility. This is not pro football, it's college football. So when we come to your house and we sit down with your son, you know, we have a responsibility to have him project not only the university, but himself and his family in the right manner. Because once it's out there, it's out there. And you can't take that back. It's on YouTube, it's everywhere. So we go through a media training, a social media training, all that when guys get there. And then, so the projection of him for the university and himself and his family is the right projection. And you know, I think it's worked out. So that whole part of it is an education alone, because college football has gotten to be so big that young people, you know, they don't get it. You know, it's they have friends who can say whatever they want on Twitter, on Snapchat, on Facebook, anything. But when they don't have the followers, they don't have 100,000 followers or 200,000 followers like the guy down the hall does.
That means increasingly the most important thing that's going on.
No problem muting a freshman. I don't want some 17, 18-year-old saying something.
Well, that's why everybody gives me a hard time. It wasn't just Johnny. Nobody asked me about Mike Evans. Mike Evans didn't talk either. So, but nobody asked Mike Evans to talk. Mike Evans is a pretty good player.
Right. Oh my God!
I
wanted him for the Jets so badly, Coach.
But you understand what I'm getting. Everybody made it about Johnny, but I had a responsibility to try to keep the ship going this way. Yeah. And when you got young players, and both of them were redshirt freshmen, had never played, they only played 2 years of college football. And as soon as the season was over, we allowed them to play. I mean, allowed them to talk. So we have a responsibility at that age, in my opinion, to educate and project the right image, not just for us, but for them too. And so, I get beat up about it a lot, but Kyle Allen talked after the bowl game, and that's fine, because we have plenty of time to do that. It's hard enough. Particularly if you're a really, really good player as a young player, to deal with. It's hard for me to deal with media. It's hard for a lot of people, because I say some dumb things too. As soon as it comes out, you're like, oh, can I get that back? It's too late. But when you're 17, 18, 19, it's even harder.
An extremely important conversation, and one I'd love to continue to have very quickly in the moment we have remaining. All this talk about Oregon again and the up-tempo offense, we've seen what Ohio State has done. If you have to put your finger on one thing a team has to do defensively to be successful against that tempo and that speed, what is the one thing they have to do to have a chance?
Well, don't kid yourself. Urban's can go up-tempo too. They've got a fabulous football team. Those receivers are good. They're playing great defense. There are a lot of talented people on that field. And, when you're playing at that tempo, you've got to stay. It's only good if you're making first downs, and tempo is great, but if you're not making first downs and you're not moving the football, you're giving the other team the ball, and your defense is worn out. So, you got two really talented teams. I think that Oregon presents a real problem because of Marcus Mariota. I mean, he's a great player, not a good player, a great player. I think it's unbelievable what Ohio State's done with their quarterback situation. Tom Herman has done a fabulous job. Urban's done a great job. Defensively, I think it's going to be a great game, and it's one that people are going to. I think we're going to enjoy this thing for a long time.
We're certainly looking forward to it. And, Coach, we really appreciate you coming down here. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
Next time you take the tie off.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I came down here. I was getting ready to come in my sweatsuit, and they said, "No, you got to go out here to the other set, the Sprint City set." So,
but that's
it's cold out there.
It is cold out there. You need your overcoat.
For the first, that's the only coat I got.
Get the man a scarf. Coach, thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
The best of Mike and Mike.
It is our pleasure to welcome on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline for the first time as a Hall of Famer, Craig Biggio, with us on Mike and Mike. Craig, congratulations. How are you this morning?
I'm doing great, Mike. I can't be any happier. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Well, it is certainly our pleasure. We had John Smoltz about an hour ago. I'll ask him the same question I asked you. The phone rings. Just take us through it. You answer the phone. Tell us what they're saying. Tell us what you're feeling.
Well, I mean, I was nervous. Yesterday morning for me, last year I was fine. It was no big deal. And then maybe with the anticipation of being so close from the year before that I was anxious. I mean, I hadn't been that anxious, except for the baseball game. And even saying that, I was more anxious yesterday. So when the phone rang, it's 12 o'clock straight up, and you see New York on the caller ID, and you're like, oh, my God, this is going to happen. And, it was emotional. I'm not going to lie. I mean, it was, I got a little emotional about it. And my family, we get an opportunity to, enjoy the moment. And, I was a little kid from Long Island, New York, grow up, and now I'm getting inducted into the Hall of Fame. So I was very appreciative. And like I said, I think that's why it kind of caught me. I was emotional about it.
And I love, didn't you say that you had to ask the guy if this was real or not? I heard you talking about
I
that.
did. Yeah, Mikey, check this out, though. I asked him, I said, this is not a joke or nothing, right? He goes, no. Okay, so it's not a joke. And then I said to him, I go, has anybody ever played a joke on somebody like that? He goes, yeah, actually, a couple guys have. I go, how cool would that have been?
It'd be horrible.
It's happened before.
And so you mentioned that you had a chance to enjoy it with your family. Take us to that then. When you hear the words, congratulations, Craig, you have been voted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. What are the first people you wanted to share that moment with, and who are you thinking about?
Well, obviously my family was right there, and so we had an opportunity to really enjoy that. My boys are back from Notre Dame right now on break and getting ready for their baseball season, and we helped my daughter out of school with hopefully with the anticipation that we got a phone call, and we did. And so your family pays a big price when you're a professional athlete, and obviously for baseball because we're gone so much. So to be able to enjoy that with them was huge. And then a couple hours later, we got an opportunity to go to Minute Maid and enjoy it with the front office and everybody that works in the building. And then we had a nice press conference. And, being the first Houston guy, to me, it was always about the fans and their teammates and stuff like that. And the fans, for me, they were great. They treated me great. We had a fond respect. And to be able to give that back to them now and finally get a guy in there, they're ecstatic right now in Houston.
Craig mentions his kids in Notre Dame. I ran into Craig and his kids in the parking lot before the national championship game a couple of years ago playing catch, and we chatted a bit there, and unfortunately we'll stop talk about that game from that point on.
Yeah, that wasn't a game, Mike. I don't always bring that up.
Yeah, I know. It's my fault. I relived a moment I shouldn't have relived there. It was, for the other guys, it was their first time, for Smoltz and for Pedro and for Randy Johnson. For you, it was your third. And last year, I can't imagine the anguish if it was for you. 74.8%, and you need 75. So take us through that, the first 2 years of that, and then hoping again this year of just kind of the emotions that the other guys really didn't have to go through because they got in on the first shot.
Right. Well, the first year it was, I think we were in the 60s, whatever, and then obviously last year we came within 2 votes short, and then, it was... you're grateful for the standpoint that, hey, you're really, really close and you're knocking at the door, but you're like so much like, you don't know what's going to happen the next year. You anticipate that hopefully, you would get over the threshold with the 75%, but there's no guarantees and you don't know. So, but as life goes on, I stayed busy as I could, with my kids and, I have my responsibilities that I have with the Houston Astros and my daughter and everything and stuff like that. So the year went relatively quickly. And then yesterday, obviously, when I woke up, I woke up at 4:30 and I was anxious, and I was like, okay, now I got to go back to bed. We got a long day, hopefully, So it was really just keeping really busy and being respectful from the standpoint of, hey, listen, you understand the big picture here, and hopefully it happens. And so that's kind of how it went about for the full year. And then again, obviously, you get the phone call yesterday, and there's you're very humbled and grateful because of the standpoint that it's the greatest building that you can get in as a baseball player, and I'm definitely honored.
All right, so a final thought, because you're going to spend a whole bunch of time with these guys now as you go in a class of 4, an unusually large class for the Hall of Fame this year, and all guys who played in your era. So, all right, 2 outs, bottom of the 9th, you're up, down a run with a runner at third. You want to face Randy Johnson, Pedro Martinez, or John Smoltz?
Can we go to the bullpen? Anybody else?
Well, Smoltzy might be there.
In the bullpen, yeah. And Randy Johnson did in the playoffs, too.
Well, I'll tell you what. John and I have got a lot. Actually, John and Pedro, we've had quite a bit of history with John because we were in the, they were in the National League East, and we were in the East as younger players. So we have quite an amount of at-bats against each other. And then Pedro was the same way when he was in Montreal and then Dodgers. And so I don't remember my history against Pedro. The unit, I know that I didn't have. I think I was 0 for 10, and I think I had 1 hit off him in spring training, but obviously it didn't. Like I said, I'd much rather defer and go to the bullpen and try to take somebody out there rather than one of those 3 guys.
Hey, Craig, congratulations from both of us and from everybody. It's well-deserved. Congratulations, and enjoy this time.
All right. I appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me on.
This has been the Best of Mike and Mike on ESPN Radio Pod Center. To hear more from Mike and Mike, log on to ESPNradio.com and become an ESPN Radio Insider.
The Best of Mike and Mike.
Why do we snack? Hunger? Taste? Because we have nothing better to do? Well, people who snack on almonds not only have something better to do, they're doing it. Almonds are heart health for those with heart. Packed with energy to keep up with anyone. It's that one-of-a-kind crunch that promises to keep you in the game for a long time to come. California almonds. Crunch on.